Hi book lovers, it's Jenny at Julia Baby Jen, and today I'm going to be talking about my book jar for 2017. I'm sorry this video has taken me so long to shoot and do, but early in the year I talked about my book jar, my 2017 book jar. It's the first time I'm trying this, and this is my cute little jar. Someone else actually made this for me in an altered can swap. It's an old can, and I thought it would be perfect for this. So I have my slips of paper in there. To the beginning of the year, I picked 41 books, and since then I think I've added one. I think I'm at 42 books that I wanted to read this year. And so I'm picking 3 out of the jar every month to read, and then occasionally I'll try to read another one here or there to get me all the way through. But I never really talked about the books that were in my jar. I never really gave a list of the books that I put in my jar. I mean, you've seen me pull them out and what they are, but they've been on a separate shelf than what's behind me. So I thought at the beginning of the year that I would actually do a video just showing you all the books that are in my on my TBR shelf for my TBR jar, and that hasn't happened, but I'm finally getting around to it today, and it's April. So, but some of these I've obviously read, but I thought I would show them to you really quick. I'm not showing to you on the shelf because I've actually moved stuff around since then, and some of the ones I finished I've moved, and some of them I put with my favorite authors back behind me. So I just kind of pulled all the books out that are in my jar, and I'm not going to talk too much about them, but I do want to show you all my books. So these are the books that I'm hoping to definitely read this year. I'm going to start with the books that I've actually already read. So these aren't in any particular order, but The Shadow Hour by Melissa Gray. This is the second book in the Girl at Midnight series, and I actually reread A Girl at Midnight before I read The Shadow Hour again. I just recently read this, and I really did enjoy this. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is wonderful fantasy, so yeah, I'm glad I already finished this one because I really did want to read this. I really wanted to read all these, that's why they're in the jar. The Truth About Forever by Sarah Dessen. I did read this one already, and I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Chasing the Rose, An Adventure in the Venetian Countryside by Andrea de Robalant. And this is a nonfiction account of this author in Italy, tracing back his family roots and this rose that was planted, this Chinese wild rose that was planted on his family's estate, and trying to find out where it came from. And it was actually really interesting. It's a really cute book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, and I really did enjoy this too. This is an adult PA novel, and I gave this 4 stars. Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. This is a adult romance, kind of a chick lit, almost kind of romance, and I gave this 4 stars. I did enjoy this. The Queen of the Tierling by Erica Johansson. I'm so glad I already got to this book. I love this fantasy. I need to pick up the next book in the series. But yeah, 5 stars. Just adored this fantasy. 80 Days by Matthew Goodman. This is a nonfiction account of Nellie Bly and Elizabeth Bisland race around the world in the late 1800s, and it was really fascinating. I gave this 4 stars. And then I have several series in here, and I did start some of these series. So this is the Whidbey Island mystery series, I guess, by Elizabeth George. It's 4 book series, but I have the first 3 books, so these are what's on my TBR jar. And I read the first book, The Edge of Nowhere, and I gave this 4 stars. And then, obviously, in the jar, I still have to read The Edge of the Water and The Edge of the Shadows. And that's the second and third book in the series, so hopefully I'll pull those out pretty soon, get to finish it. It's a really good mystery. And then I read A Conspiracy of Alchemists by Lisa Schwartz. And this is actually a reread for me. It's been a long time since I read this book, but it's 4.5 star read for me. I love this. This is great steampunk fantasy. Just wonderful. And then I also have in the jar A Clockwork Heart, which is a second book, and I haven't read this one yet. And Sky Pirates, which is a third book in this trilogy, and I haven't read this one yet either. So I just love these covers. They're really hard to find. I did find these, I think, all of these used on Amazon. I think the author is from Germany, and so that might be part of it, but I just love these covers. They're so beautiful. But I could not find a hardcover or even a large paperback for the third book for Sky Pirates. I could only find a mass market paperback. I did find one hardcover on Amazon. It was like $40 or something though, so wasn't gonna buy that. But then I found Sky Pirates, which was a much better price, and so it's mass market paperback, which isn't my favorite, but I do want to finish this series, so I'm excited I at least was able to get the book to read it. Someday I'm hoping to find the hardcover to go with the other two, because I really want to keep this series. It's a really fun series. Then I read The Heart of Betrayal by Mary E. Pearson, which is the second book in the Revenant Chronicles. So I've read this one, 4.5 stars, loved it, wonderful fantasy. I'm so happy that I read this, finally. I read A Kiss of Deception a really long time ago, and I loved it, but I just never got to this. And then I also have The Beauty of Darkness in the TBR jar, which I was hoping to read really soon, but we'll see. I really do want to get to it after reading The Heart of Betrayal. And the thing about my jar is I am picking out of it for 3 books every month, but if a book catches my fancy and I really want to read it, I'm just going to go ahead and read it, and then I won't have to pull it out of the jar later. Because some of these books I'm going to have to. 3 books a month is 36, and I have 42, so I have to read a few extra. Attachments, was one that I just pulled out and read on a whim. So I wanted a kind of a romance for Valentine's Day-ish time, so that was one I didn't even pull out of the jar, just read it. Okay, so that's all the books that I've read so far in the TBR jar, plus a few other the series that went with them. Keep going here. I'll keep going with the series thing since that's what I was doing. So then I have the I don't know what the name of the series is actually. The Air series? Is that what it's called? I'm not sure. But it's Cinda Williams Chima's series that I haven't read any of her books yet, and I've had these books forever. I don't know if everyone remembers Borders, the bookstore Borders, and how popular that was. When Borders went out of business, I bought a ton of books because they were all like 40% off, and then they dropped even lower at the very end. So this is one of the series that I bought from them, and so that was what? 7-8 years ago, maybe? It was a while ago, a long time ago, and I haven't read these yet, and they're supposed to be really wonderful. And then since then, they've had 2 more that have come out, I believe. So I really do want to read this. So these are on my TBR this year. So it's the Warrior Heir, the Dragon Heir, and the Wizard Heir. And I'm really excited to read these, and then I can continue with the series. And then I can read some of her other stuff, because I've heard her books are really wonderful fantasy, so I'm sure I will love them. Then I have Red Rising and Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. I actually started reading Red Rising like a year ago, and at the time, it's such a very dark book, and at the time my grandmother had just passed away, and it was just too dark for me to read at that moment, and I never picked it back up, but I always wanted to because I've heard this series is wonderful. And I actually have the 3rd book now too, but I didn't put it on the TBR jar. So these 2 are 2 books that I really want to read this year. So yep, these are in my jar. When I made this jar, I was picking a lot of books that I've had on my shelves for a long time. Some of them are newer, but a lot of them I had for a long time. Here's another one that I've had forever. And it's the Dark Divine series by Brie Despain. And so yeah, I've had this forever. So it's the Dark Divine, and then the Lost Saint, and the Savage Grace. So I have all 3 of these books. They're just YA paranormal fantasy that I've had forever. I really don't even know much about their about, but I've heard it's a really wonderful series, and I've never read it. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to put these on the TBR this year. Get them read. Oh, I missed a book that I read. Oops. So I was also going to get caught up on C.C. Hunter, the Shadow Falls series. The first one, not the spin-off one. I read Born at Midnight a really long time ago, and I really did enjoy it, but then I never did finish any of the series. Awake at Dawn, I actually is a signed book I got. I met the author in Nashville a few years ago at Utopia, and so I did get that one signed, and then since then I had picked up the other books. And yeah, so I did actually read Awake at Dawn already. I have read that this year, and I really did enjoy it. I think this is the first one I read from my book jar actually this year. I really loved it. And so then I also have Taken at Dusk and Chosen at Nightfall and Whispers at Moonrise, and that finishes off that series. So I still have 3 more in that series to read. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this series. These 2 books are pretty new acquisitions. I got them at the Dollar Tree, but they're older books, but I do want to read them. They're by Catherine Fisher, and I really do like her writing. So I have Obsidian Mirror, and then the sequel, The Slanted Worlds. So this is YA fantasy, and I really do enjoy this author, so I'm excited to read this set. I don't know if there's going to be any more after, if it's just a duology or what. I haven't really looked that up yet. Then I have Fallen Kingdoms and Rebel Spring by Morgan Rhodes. I've heard mixed things on this series, but I really want to read it. And so I won Fallen Kingdoms. It's a beautiful, beautiful cover, beautiful book. So I was happy to win it. And then Rebel Spring came out, and I went ahead and bought it. I'm like, I'm going to want to probably want to read this series. So I bought that. And I still hadn't read them. Since then, I bought Gathering Darkness, which is the 3rd book. I didn't put it on the TBR jar, but I do have the 3rd book, Gathering Darkness, so I may read that this year too. And now I think there's 5 books out in this series. I think it's supposed to be a 6-book series, at least. And there's a spin-off series now too, and I have one of the books for that series. So they're just such beautiful, beautiful books. I knew I was going to want to own these, so... But yeah, I have Fallen Kingdoms and Rebel Spring on my list. And then I have Ashes to Ashes and Fire with Fire by Jenny Han. And, oh, how come I can never remember how to say her name? It's not hard, but for some reason. Vivian, what's her first name? Oh, it's not like it sounds. I can never remember how to say it. Oh, jeez. Okay, well, anyway, the first book was Burn for Burn, and I read that, and I thought this was kind of a drama-filled series, but I liked it. It kind of reminds me of Pretty Little Liars a little bit, except I don't believe that there's any murder to this one. It's been a while since I read Burn for Burn, but it does get a little ruthless about these 3 girls who are exacting revenge, and so yeah, it's interesting. So this is the 2nd of their book in the series, and I want to finish this year. Then I have Through the Dark by Alexandra Bracken on my list. This is actually a companion novel to her Darkest Minds trilogy, which I love. And this is like a bunch of novellas. I think there's 3 novellas in here, and I have read one, but I did want the collection. It's a beautiful book, but I haven't read the actual book yet, so that's on my list. Then I have The Novice by Taryn Matheru, which is the first book in a series, and this looks really good, so I'm excited to read this. I have Like a River Glorious by Rae Carson. This is the 2nd book in the Gold Seeker? I think it's Gold Seeker trilogy, and I really need to read this. Such a beautiful cover. I love the first book. Rae Carson's one of my favorite authors. I cannot wait to read this book. The 3rd book should be coming out this fall, I think. Then I have In the Fabled East by Adam Lewis Schroeder. This is a literary fiction adult novel that I've had for a little while, and I really wanted to read this. I tried to put a good variety of books on in my TBR. I have a lot of YA fantasy, but I did get a few adults and things in here. One I have is historical fiction, Ashendon by Elizabeth Wilhide. This is supposed to be kind of like a Downton Abbey type of story. Looks really good. And then I have another nonfiction. I had a couple, and I've already read 2. I think I just have this one last one left. And this is Killing Lincoln by Bill O'Reilly and Martin Dugard. So this is like a series that they write based on historical figures and kind of the truth behind some of the historical facts, like conspiracies, some of it, but they have a lot of factual information that's interesting, and they're just interesting books. I read Killing Patton, and that was really good. I learned so much reading that. So this is one that they wrote, Killing Lincoln. So I have this one, and I have somewhere downstairs I have Killing Jesus, and I haven't read that yet. And then they also released one, I think it was Killing JFK, or was it Killing Reagan? No, I think it's Killing JFK, but I don't have that one yet. But at some point I'll read that. So this is on my list. And then the last 3 books I have here are actually books that I've pulled out of the TBR jar to read in April. I haven't read them yet, but I'm hoping to read them in April. So I have Happily Ever After by Kiera Cass. This is a companion novel to the Selection series. It's a bunch of short stories and things in here, and I can't wait to read this. And then I have Bright Smoke, Cold Fire by Rosamund Hodge. This is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, and I'm really excited to read this. I loved Crimson Bound by her, which was a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. It was one of the best retellings I've read. I loved it. So I'm excited to read this. And then finally, I have Seeker by Arwen Ellis Dayton, which is the first book in another fantasy series. So those are all the books that are in my TBR jar. I've gotten a pretty good start on reading them, and hopefully I will finish these at the end of the year. I'm going to do something really fun with these at the end of the year. I'm going to hold on to all the books. I will probably halfway through the year do an update video. I'm thinking sometime this summer. Just kind of go through a little more of the books I've read, just to make it easier at the end of the year. I will... So yeah, this is just a really fun challenge for me. I know it's nothing new. The TBR jars have been out for a while, but I've never done it, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really fun. So yeah. So leave me comments below if you have a book jar, or if you've had one, and what your thoughts are on them, and if you want to talk about any of these books. I hope everyone has a good day. I will talk to you later.